I got the call just after sunrise. A body was found near the lake at Pinwood Ridge, the old summer camp out by the woods. Dispatch said it was a male, late 20s, stabbed in the chest. No signs of a fight, no screams. Just a cook who came in early to take inventory and found a shoe sticking out behind the canoe rack. I was there by 6:20 a.m., walking the same gravel trail I walked 30 years ago, back when I was still a rookie. That camp holds memories, most of them bad. The director met me at the gate. Her name was Lynn Sharp. She looked like she hadn't blinked all morning. She didn't say much, just pointed toward the tree line behind the dining hall. The techs were already there, standing around a black body bag that hadn't been zipped yet. The air smelled like pine and metal, the kind of mix your nose never forgets. One look at the body and I knew. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. One clean stab, direct to the chest, no defense wounds, and right beside the body was the murder weapon. I crouched down. It was a combat knife. Black handle, chipped at the edge, duct tape wrapped tight near the grip, like someone had tried to hold it together. I stared at that tape for a long time. It wasn't just familiar. It was mine. My wrap, my markings. I'd seen this knife before. I logged it myself in 1994. That year, a kid named Ricky Monroe stabbed his counselor at this very camp. The blade missed anything vital, but the boy was expelled and the knife was bagged and sealed. I was the one who filed it into evidence. The paperwork said it was lost in a flood years later, but this wasn't a copy. This was the same knife, same chip, same tape, and now it had killed someone. I bagged the blade and told the team to secure the scene. Then I called records. A woman named Marisol answered. She's been there longer than the computers have. I gave her the knife details, asked her to pull the old tag if it still existed. 10 minutes later, she faxed over a scan. My name was there, Officer Jensen, August 2nd, 1994. Evidence tag, one tactical knife, duct tape near grip, edge chipped. No doubt about it, same weapon. So I started digging. The dead man's name was Travis Landon, 28. Hired just 2 weeks ago to replace a counselor who backed out last minute. Clean record, no complaints. But when I pulled the 1994 case file again, there was his name, small, scribbled in the margins. Travis Landon, cabin witness. He was here that summer, 12 years old. He saw what happened between Ricky and the counselor. Or at least, that's what the report said. So why did he come back? Why take a job at the same camp where a stabbing happened when you were a kid? I asked the other counselors. They were young. Most of them didn't even know what happened in 1994. But one of them, a girl named Mia, said something odd. She told me Travis would walk the grounds at night without a flashlight, that he didn't talk much, that he once showed her a photo. 2 boys, maybe 13 years old, arms over each other's shoulders. He said it was from a summer that went wrong. She said he looked scared when he said it. Not sad, scared, like someone might hear him. I asked to see his belongings. In Travis's wallet, folded tight and old, was the same photo Mia had mentioned. I scanned it and froze. One of the boys looked like Ricky Monroe, but I couldn't tell for sure. I went back to cabin 4, the same one from 1994. It hadn't changed much, still creaked when you stepped inside. On the underside of one bunk, scratched into the wood, were the letters RM, carved fresh. The edges hadn't even smoothed yet. Someone had been there recently. Someone wanted me to see it. I started wondering if I'd missed something back then. Maybe Ricky didn't just snap. Maybe there was more between those boys. Maybe Travis knew the truth, and maybe that truth had followed him back here. Back at the station, I pulled the camp's new gate logs. Every vehicle that passed within 200 feet of the entrance got flagged by the new sensor tower. Just after 3 a.m., a white pickup was recorded. No plates, no make, no exit log. 5 minutes in, then nothing. Like it vanished. Whoever was driving it either knew the land better than we did, or never left. I returned to cabin 4 after dark. I walked the perimeter, slow and quiet, until something caught my eye wedged in the dock. A piece of paper, folded, damp from the lake, but the writing was clear. 4 words. He remembers. So do I. I didn't show it to anyone. Not yet. Because if this case is really what I think it is, someone didn't come here to kill. They came here to finish something. And if I'm right, they've been waiting for this for a long, long time. I didn't sleep that night. That paper, the one I found by the dock, kept flashing in my mind like a warning I couldn't turn off. He remembers. So do I. It didn't read like a threat. It read like a quiet promise. Someone had waited years to send that message, and they knew I'd be the one to read it. I sat in the precinct parking lot before sunrise, holding the evidence slip from 1994, my handwriting, my old badge number, same knife, same duct tape. It was all coming back to me. The kid with the wild eyes, the counselor limping to the medic tent, the way everyone tried to wrap it up fast and quiet. I was new then. I didn't ask questions. Maybe I should have. Back then, the boy who did the stabbing was named Ricky Monroe, 14 years old, came from a group home. No parents. He stabbed his counselor during a fight about a sketchbook. That's what the report said. Misunderstanding. The counselor didn't press charges. Knife was logged. Ricky was sent home. Case closed. But that story never sat right with me. Not then, and definitely not now. At 8:00 a.m., I called Marisol in records. She's the only one who never asks why. She just pulls what I need. I gave her Ricky's full name, asked her to go beyond the basic files. 20 minutes later, she called back. "You're not gonna like this," she said. Ricky's file ended in 1999. No new addresses, no jobs, no school, no death record either. It just stopped. Like he disappeared. I searched every database we had. Nothing. Then I tried something else. A name change. If Ricky wanted to vanish, he might have changed his identity. I started with initials. RM. After an hour, one name hit close. Richard Monroe. A report from 21-4. Welfare check in a condemned greenhouse, just a few towns from Pinwood Ridge. The caller claimed someone was living in the walls. When officers arrived, the place was empty. No follow-up. Case dropped. I drove there right after lunch. The greenhouse was a skeleton of glass and weeds. Broken roof, dead vines crawling over old stone. But someone had lived there. Tucked under the window ledge was a metal milk crate. Inside were 3 items: a worn-out Zippo lighter, a half-ruined notebook, and a wooden block. Someone had carved a name into the block. Travis Landon. My hands froze. Why would someone carve his name and leave it here? I opened the notebook. Most of the pages were moldy, unreadable, but a few lines made it through. He lied. He said he'd protect me. Cabin 4 still smells like him. I went back. I waited. He came. It wasn't rage. It was pain. The kind that festers for years when you've been forgotten. When someone promised to stand up for you and didn't. I drove back to the camp with that notebook on my seat. My chest felt heavy. Not because of guilt. Not yet, but something close. I found Mia, the counselor who'd spoken to me before. She hadn't left yet. She was sitting by the lake, arms crossed tight like she was cold inside. I remembered something else, she said before I even asked. Travis kept talking about second chances. Said this camp was his way of making peace. With who? I asked. She shook her head. He never said, but he looked over his shoulder a lot, like someone might be following. I asked her to think hard. Did Travis ever mention a name from that old summer? One name, she said slowly. Luis. I think it was Luis. I went back to my files. 1994. Cabin 4. Travis Landon, Ricky Monroe, and Luis Romero. He was just another kid in the cabin. Barely mentioned. No statement. No interview. No one followed up. I searched that name. No criminal history. No active record. Until I tried a slight twist. L. Romero. Dingo. Arrested for trespassing on state land. Where? Pinewood Ridge. Charges dropped. Case closed. Why were they all coming back here? Travis? Ricky? Luis? It wasn't coincidence. It was unfinished business. But the story was getting harder to follow, and something told me I was about to find the part people had been hiding for 3 decades. At 10:48 p.m., the camp's motion sensor system flagged a vehicle. Same white pickup from before. No plates. Entered, stayed 7 minutes. No exit log. This time, it went a different direction. Not toward the lake. Not toward the cabins. Toward the old cemetery behind the chapel. Most people don't know it's there. It's not even on the updated maps. Just a crooked fence, a few faded stones, and a bunch of pine needles hiding whatever's left. I waited until the next morning. Then I grabbed a flashlight and went alone. Something in my gut told me I wasn't ready for what I was about to find. I waited until the sun came up. I didn't want to be caught walking through a graveyard in the dark, even if I wore a badge. The cemetery behind the old camp chapel wasn't listed on any official map. No signs, no gates. Just broken fencing, uneven stones, and tall grass swallowing everything beneath it. Some graves were over 100 years old. Others weren't marked at all. I passed the first row, scanning each name. Most of the stones were cracked or missing pieces. Birds circled above the trees. The air smelled like dirt and old wood. I kept going until I found something that didn't belong. A patch of soil was disturbed. Not fresh, but not settled either. The weeds had been cleared. The dirt had been turned recently. It was the only grave without a headstone. I knelt down and brushed the earth with my glove. That's when I saw it. A small wooden cross. Not nailed, just stuck into the dirt. No name, no date. Only 3 letters, carved with a pocket knife. M. I stood there for a long time, staring at the cross. My mind was racing. Was this supposed to be Ricky's grave? Had someone buried him here in secret? Or was someone pretending? I radioed for a forensic unit and flagged the site. 2 hours later, the team arrived with soft brushes and portable screens. We peeled back the dirt one layer at a time. I tried not to think about what we'd find. Part of me hoped it was just an old animal grave, something simple. It wasn't. About 3 feet down, they found a small box. Not a coffin, a sealed wooden crate. Inside it was something strange. Not bones, not a body. Clothing. A faded Camp Pinwood Ridge staff shirt, folded. Underneath that, a sketchbook, molded at the edges but mostly intact, and taped to the front cover was a photo. 2 boys, one with his arm around the other, both smiling like they hadn't learned yet what the world could do to them. One of them was Travis Landon. The other was Ricky. I opened the sketchbook. The first few pages were drawings of cabins and lake scenes, simple pencil work. But as I flipped deeper, the drawings changed. People with their mouths covered, a boy hiding under a bed, a dark figure standing in the doorway holding something sharp. The last page was almost all black pencil, hard and messy, like someone had pressed down until the paper tore. And in the corner, written in small, shaky letters, he said I could trust him. I sat on the chapel steps for a long time after the team left, holding the sketchbook, staring at the photos. I didn't say it out loud, but I knew what I was thinking. What if Ricky hadn't been the real danger back then? What if he was the one trying to speak up, and no one listened? Back at the station, I pulled every old complaint report from the summer of 1994. Most were simple. Stolen candy, sprained ankles, noise after lights out. But buried in one report, dated July 28th, was a note from a nurse. She wrote that a camper from cabin 4 came in with a nosebleed and bruises, claimed he fell out of bed. Nurse wasn't convinced. She marked it as suspicious, but didn't follow up. That camper's name? Luis Romero. Same cabin, same timeline. Something happened in cabin 4 that summer. Something bad, and now one of them was dead. One had disappeared. And one, Luis, was still out there. I needed to talk to him. I found a last known address from the 2012 trespassing case, a rundown apartment complex on the edge of town. I drove there just before sundown. The hallway stank of smoke and bleach. I knocked on Unit 2B. No answer. I knocked again. After a minute, the door opened. A man stood there, early 40s, tired eyes, sunken cheeks. He didn't speak, just stared. Luis? I asked. He didn't move. My name is Jensen. I'm investigating a death at Pinwood Ridge Camp. Still nothing. I pulled out the photo from the box, held it up. He blinked. Once. Then he said something I didn't expect. I knew he'd come back. I waited. He stepped aside. Let me in. The apartment was bare. Just a couch, a table, a fan. On the wall was a single photo. Kids at a campfire. Taken from behind. All you could see were shadows and sparks. Tell me what happened in cabin 4, I said. He sat down, hands shaking. They thought Ricky was crazy, he said. But he wasn't. He was scared of Travis. What did Travis do? I asked. Luis looked at me. His voice cracked. He made us keep quiet. The room fell silent. I didn't write anything down. I just listened. Luis sat still on the couch like he was afraid the truth might hurt him all over again. He didn't blink much. He didn't look at me. He just spoke like someone who had carried something heavy for way too long. I didn't stop him. I didn't take notes. I didn't even move. I let him speak at his own pace, because the story was no longer mine. It was his. He told me that Ricky brought the knife to camp because he was scared. Not because he wanted to hurt anyone, but because he didn't feel safe at night. Ricky said Travis would come down from the top bunk after lights out and say things, strange things, like, "It's our secret," or, "If you tell, I'll say it was you." At first, Luis thought it was a joke. Then he saw Ricky cry, quietly, trying not to be heard. Luis didn't know what to do. They were just kids. One night, Ricky showed him the sketchbook. Inside were drawings of Travis, watching, waiting, sometimes standing over them while they slept. Luis said he didn't understand it back then, but he remembered the fear, and he remembered what happened next. Ricky finally told the counselor, not about everything, just that he wanted to switch cabins, that he didn't feel safe. The counselor laughed, told him to toughen up, said Travis was a good kid. Later that night, Travis found Ricky in the mess hall and said, "You talk again, and I'll make sure they find your drawings floating in the lake." The next day, Ricky snapped. Luis didn't see the stabbing, but he heard the scream. He saw Ricky standing with the knife. He saw the blood, and he saw Travis smile through the pain. Just a little, just enough to know he was still in control. I asked why no one said anything after, why he didn't speak up. Luis stared down at his hands. "Because he made us promise," he said. "He said if we talked, we'd be the next ones blamed," and we believed him. After Ricky was expelled, Travis returned to camp 2 summers later as a junior counselor. That's when Luis knew the world wasn't fair. That's when he stopped trusting adults. And that's when he ran away for the first time. "I thought Ricky was dead," Luis said, "until 2 years ago. I saw someone watching from the trees near my building, just standing there. I knew it was him. I asked if Ricky ever spoke to him." Luis shook his head. "No, but I saw his eyes. He still remembered. He never forgot what Travis did." I left the apartment with my head spinning. The story had flipped. The victim wasn't who I thought. The case I helped close all those years ago, the one I walked away from, had been sealed with silence, not justice. And now someone had paid the price. I got in my car and sat for a while, hands on the wheel. The windows were fogged up. I turned the defroster on, but something outside caught my eye. A mark on the driver's side door. I stepped out and walked around. It wasn't a scratch. It was carved. Someone had taken a key or a blade and scratched 4 letters into the paint. "Tell him no." I looked around fast, but the street was empty. No footsteps, no sound. Just that message, raw and deep in the metal. I didn't know what it meant yet, but I had a feeling Luis would. I drove back, knocked hard on the door. Luis opened it, startled. "Someone left me a message," I said. "On my car." His face went pale. "What did it say?" he asked. I told him. He sat down slow, covered his mouth, then looked at me with fear in his eyes. "It's not for you," he said. "It's for me." "What does it mean?" He paused. He asked me once, long ago, if I'd help him finish it. I said no. That's why I left. That's why I disappeared. But now he knows I talked to you. He knows I broke the promise. "Finish what?" I asked. Luis stood up, walked to a closet, pulled out an old duffel bag. From it, he handed me something wrapped in cloth. It was a second knife, not the same as the first. This one was smaller, but it had the same kind of duct tape on the handle, the same chip near the tip. "He gave this to me," Luis said, voice shaking. "Said I'd need it when the time came." I held the blade in my hand, cold, worn, waiting. "He's not done," Luis whispered. "He wants both of us to make it right." But I told him no. Now I understood the message. Tell him no. Ricky had reached out to Luis, and Luis refused. And now someone else might be next. I looked at the knife, then at Luis. "Where would he go?" I asked. Luis didn't hesitate. "Cabin 4, he said. "Always cabin 4. I got back to Pinwood Ridge just before midnight. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. Not even the usual chirp of insects or rustling leaves. The stillness made everything louder. The crunch of gravel under my boots, the thump of my heart. I parked near the old maintenance shed, killed the engine, and made the rest of the walk on foot. I kept my flashlight off. My hand stayed near my holster, not because I expected trouble, but because I no longer trusted this place to keep its secrets. I knew I wasn't just here for answers. I was walking into something that had been waiting. Cabin 4 stood in the dark, same as always. A crooked step at the front. One window screen flapping slightly in the wind. I paused on the porch, listening. I could smell something strange. Plastic, maybe. Burnt, but faint. I touched the doorknob. It was warm. Not hot enough to panic, but just enough to say, someone else touched this before me. I drew my flashlight but didn't turn it on. Instead, I opened the door slow and let my eyes adjust. The room was dark, but in the back corner, there was a red light. Not bright, but steady. I took one step in and froze. Mounted just above the bunk bed was a small camera. New, clean, blinking. Someone had set it up recently. I followed the wires down and spotted a plastic box under the lower bed frame. I got down on one knee, careful not to move too fast. The box had a timer. It was counting down. I moved back, fast but quiet. My breath held. 10 seconds. 5, 1, then nothing. No explosion. No beeping. Just a soft click and a pop from a hidden speaker overhead. A voice came through. It was rough, low, but clear. I waited, it said. I waited for someone to care, for someone to come back. No one did, so I came back alone. My chest tightened. I knew that voice. It was older now, more tired, but it was Ricky, no doubt. The voice continued. You think this ends with Travis. You think one death makes it even. You never asked why I had the knife that night. You never asked what he did. You just took it, filed it, forgot it. You moved on. There was a pause. Then another voice kicked in. This one was younger, uneven, a little shaky. It was Lewis, but not present-day Lewis. It was a recording. A boy, maybe 14, trying not to cry. He said if I told anyone, he'd hurt my mom, but I don't even know where she is. He said I was his now. My throat went dry. The static that followed wasn't loud, but it filled the room like fog. I stepped closer and turned the speaker off. My hands were cold. My legs felt stiff. I had never heard those recordings before, and I didn't know who else had. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was a letter, written in pain, sealed in silence, and delivered years later. And I was one of the names on the envelope. I scanned the rest of the room. On the floor near the wall was a pile of items. An old Pinwood Ridge shirt, a notebook, a flashlight with dying batteries. I picked up the notebook and flipped through it. Sketches, cabin drawings, faces. The dining hall made a picture of Luis's apartment, drawn from the distance. Another of my car. He'd been following us, watching from the shadows. I turned to the last page. It was a map, hand-drawn but detailed. The camp, the trail, the dock, and then something new. A small X behind the chapel. Not in the cemetery, behind it. I took out my phone and snapped a photo. Then I ran. The trail twisted, and the air got colder. I passed the dining hall, crossed the fire pit, and followed the map's edge until I saw the back of the chapel. There were no lights here, no path, just woods and brush. I walked slowly, brushing branches out of my way. That's when I saw the flat stone, half buried under leaves and pine needles. It looked like nothing special, but something in my gut told me it wasn't just a rock. I knelt down and pushed it aside. Underneath was a shallow hole. Inside was a small metal box. I opened it. Inside were 3 things: a flashlight, a thermos, and a letter folded neatly in a zip bag. I pulled out the letter and opened it. To the one who never looked twice. Don't stop now. No name, no date. Just that. I sat on the cold ground and stared at those words. I had questions. Too many. But none of them would matter if I didn't act fast. I pulled out my phone. 1 bar of service. I called Luis. No answer. Called again. Still nothing. Then a buzz. 1 new message. It was a photo. Luis, lying on the floor. Duct tape across his mouth. Eyes wide. And behind him, in the shadow near the wall, a figure. Just an outline, but I knew it was Ricky. I didn't know how he got to Luis, or when, but I knew this. Ricky wasn't trying to escape anymore. He was trying to finish what he started. And now he wanted me to watch. I didn't even wait for backup. I got in my car, hit the lights, and tore through town like the pavement owed me something. I couldn't breathe right. Couldn't think straight. Luis was supposed to be safe. I'd talked to him, sat in his home, promised to protect him. And now he was lying on the floor, bound, gagged, and staring into the camera like he knew I wouldn't get there in time. But I had to try. That picture wasn't just a threat. It was a clock, and I didn't know how many ticks I had left. When I reached the apartment, I didn't bother knocking. I broke the lock and burst in, gun drawn. voice low and steady. But the room was empty. No blood, no sounds, just the echo of my boots on the hardwood. I cleared every room, kitchen, bathroom, closet, nothing. It looked like someone had swept through quickly, grabbed what they needed, and left without a trace. The couch cushion was still warm, the closet door still half open. Whoever had taken Louise hadn't been gone long. Then I saw the table. There was one thing left behind, a sheet of paper, folded once, sitting in the middle like it was waiting for me. I opened it carefully, half expecting another letter, another riddle, another message from the past. But it wasn't a note, it was a drawing. A face, female, older, sharp cheekbones, tight bun, eyes tired but kind. I knew her. It was Lynn Sharp, the camp director. She'd been the one to call in the original death, the one who unlocked the gate, the one who stayed quiet while I asked questions. I thought she was just trying to keep the camp out of the news, but now I wondered, was she just another bystander, or was she part of all this? I looked closer. There were words scribbled next to her portrait. Not neat, not careful, just jagged, like someone had pressed hard with the pencil. One of them knew. My skin prickled. One of them knew what? About Ricky? About Travis? About the knife? Was this some kind of warning? Or was she next? I turned the drawing over. On the back was a list of dates. Each one matched a summer session at Pinwood Ridge. Some had check marks. Others had X's. One year, 1994, was circled twice in red. I stared at that circle, heart sinking. Was Lynn there that summer? I pulled out my phone and called dispatch. Asked them to run her employee file. They came back with a hit. She started at Pinwood Ridge in 1993. Assistant director at the time. Took over in 2006. I asked if she was working today. She was. Still on camp property. I was already in the car. By the time I reached the camp, the sun had started to rise. The air felt heavier than usual, like the forest knew something was wrong. I parked near the chapel again and walked fast to the main office. The lights were off, but I saw movement inside. I knocked hard. Lynn opened the door a crack. Her face was pale, eyes wide. "Detective Jensen," she asked. "What's going on?" "We need to talk," I said. "Now." She let me in and locked the door behind us. Her hands were shaking. Not much, just enough to notice. I showed her the drawing. Watched her face. She flinched. "I don't know what this is," she said. "Don't lie to me," I said. "You were here in 1994. You knew Ricky. You knew Travis. And now someone's playing a game that started under your watch." She sat down hard. "I didn't think it would come back," she whispered. "I didn't think anyone remembered." "Remembered what?" She rubbed her hands together like she was trying to wash them clean. "I heard things," she said. "That summer, I was young. I didn't have power. But I knew something was off. Ricky was scared of Travis, but Travis was the golden boy. He knew how to act around adults. Always polite, always helpful." She looked up at me. I didn't stop it. I didn't ask more questions. And when the stabbing happened, they asked me to help file the report. Make it clean, simple. I did what I was told. "Who asked you?" I said. She hesitated, then said, "Travis's father. He was a donor, big one, helped keep the camp running. If the story got out, we would have lost everything. So you covered it up?" "I followed orders," she said. I stepped back, took a breath. This was bigger than one mistake, bigger than one kid lashing out. A system had protected Travis, buried Ricky, ignored Luis, and now the past was clawing its way back out. I leaned in. "Ricky has Luis. He left this sketch. You're in it. You're the next name on his list." "Why?" She stared at the paper. "Because I saw him once, 2 summers ago, watching from the woods. I didn't say anything. I thought I imagined it, but I didn't." I stood up. "We need to move. Now. If he's coming, he won't wait." We locked the doors, checked the windows, turned off the lights. I called for backup, but didn't wait. I told Lynn to stay down and stay quiet. Then I walked the perimeter of the building, flashlight in one hand, weapon in the other. Every shadow looked alive. Every branch felt like it might reach out. That's when I saw it. In the dirt outside the back window. Footprints. There. Small. Fresh. And a symbol drawn in the mud. A triangle. Inside it, 3 letters. R.M. Again. He'd been here. He wanted us to know. The triangle in the dirt wasn't just a symbol. It was a message. 3 corners. 3 boys, Ricky, Travis, and Luis. All from cabin 4. The past kept showing up in pieces, like Ricky wanted me to gather them. Not just to solve a case, but to feel it. To know the weight of every silence. I crouched next to the footprint. The toes were angled slightly inward. A limp, maybe, or a bad leg. Either way, he was close. Still walking the grounds barefoot like he had nothing to lose. I took a photo of the print, then circled back to the office. Lynn hadn't moved. She was sitting in the dark, staring at the window like she expected it to break at any second. I found tracks, I said. He was outside. Minutes ago. She nodded once, then whispered, "He knows I'm alone." I looked at her and asked the question that had been crawling in my head since the moment I saw her face in that sketch. "Did you ever speak to him again?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stood up and walked to a file cabinet in the corner. She pulled out a folder, one I hadn't seen before. Inside were 3 letters, old, yellowed at the edges. No stamp, no return address, just short, careful writing. Each one ended the same way. "Thank you for not telling. I remember who you are. R. You knew he was alive?" I said. She looked down. I didn't know what to do. He never threatened me. He just left pieces, little notes, sometimes flowers, a scarf once. He wasn't angry, not then, just sad. "You never told anyone." What could I say? That a boy we failed had come back to leave thank you notes? No one would have believed me. They barely believed him back then. I stared at the letters, folded one open. Inside was a small drawing, a tree by the lake, and 3 shadows underneath it. "You think he's trying to make peace?" I asked. She shook her head. "Not anymore." I stepped outside to call in the new discovery. Dispatch said backup was still 10 minutes away. 10 minutes felt like 10 hours. I paced in the grass, going over everything in my mind. Ricky had Luis, but he hadn't killed him. Not yet. Lynn was still breathing. The drawing showed her as a witness, not a target. So what did he want? That's when I noticed something strange near the back fence. A small tarp, stretched low to the ground, covered in brush. It hadn't been there earlier. I crept toward it, careful not to snap a twig. When I lifted the edge, I saw a cooler, a blanket, a battery-powered lamp, and food. Canned beans, crackers, protein bars. Someone had been camping here, not just passing through, living. And then I saw it, a notebook. Same style as the others, same torn edges. I flipped through the first few pages, one sentence repeated over and over. He didn't believe me. Then, he filed the knife, but not the truth. Then something new. Luis lied, too. That stopped me. I had been so sure Luis was a victim, that he told me everything. But what if he hadn't? What if Ricky had more to say, and Luis had left something out? I took the notebook and returned to the office. I showed Lynn the page. She read it and whispered, "He still thinks no one listened." "I did," I said. "I'm listening now." She looked at me with sad eyes. "That's not enough. Not for someone who waited 30 years. Then my phone buzzed. A new message. No text, just a photo. Luis, this time sitting, alive, tired, tape off, a paper in his lap. Another drawing. It was me. Only this time, I wasn't holding a badge. I was holding the same knife I logged 30 years ago. My name written underneath in the same jagged hand. "You filed it. You kept it. You closed it." He was blaming me. He wasn't wrong. I had signed the original evidence slip. I had taken Ricky's knife, stored it, and moved on. I never asked why a 14-year-old needed it in the first place. Never questioned the quiet. Ricky hadn't just returned to face Travis, or Luis, or Lynn. He came back for me. I felt a crack form deep in my chest. I thought I'd been chasing a killer, but now I realized he was chasing me, and I didn't know if he wanted justice or confession. Lynn said quietly, "He wants you to go to him." "Well, he left you a trail," she said, "like he always does." I opened the notebook again. The last page was a map. Not of the camp, of the trail behind the lake, the path no one uses, the one that leads to the ravine. There was an X, and next to it, "Come alone, or I finish it." I checked my gun. Then I pulled out my phone and sent the map to HQ. "If I don't call in 20 minutes, I said to Lynn, "you give them this. You tell them I walked in with both eyes open." She nodded. I stepped out into the night. The trail behind the lake was narrower than I remembered. Branches scratched at my jacket as I pushed forward. the beam from my flashlight bouncing with every step. Pine needles muffled my boots. The wind had picked up, but the sky stayed black. No stars, just the sound of my breath and the growing weight in my chest. I was past the point of backup. No signal, no call. Just me, the trees, and a boy I once failed. Now a man who hadn't stopped carrying what I walked away from. I followed the map Ricky had left in the notebook, one curve at a time. He wanted me to find him. He wanted me alone, and now I was. 15 minutes in, the forest opened. A clearing. Moonlight hit the middle like a stage. And there he was. Ricky stood at the center, arms at his sides, head tilted slightly like he wasn't sure I was real. He looked older than his years. Hair longer, beard short, patchy. His eyes, same ones from that photo in the sketchbook, locked onto mine like he'd been waiting years to see if I'd actually show up. No gun, no knife, just him and Luis, tied to a tree behind him. Alive, awake, watching. I raised my hands. I'm here, just me. He didn't move. I got your notes, I said. I read the drawings, the recordings. I listened. Still nothing. Just the wind and the soft flap of fabric from Luis's torn sleeve. I should have asked questions back then, I said. But I didn't, and that's on me. He stepped forward once. Just 1 foot, but it changed the air. I saw something in his hands now. A sketchbook. The same one from before, covered in dirt, pages bent. You didn't believe me, he said, voice cracked, like it had rusted from disuse. None of you did. I know, I said. You took the knife, filed the report, let them send me back. I was 24. I didn't know what I was doing. No, he said. You didn't care what I was saying. I looked at Luis. His mouth wasn't gagged, just duct tape on his arms. He gave me a small nod, scared, but not bleeding, not broken, not yet. You're not here to hurt him, I said. You want someone to see it. Finally, Ricky blinked. The sketchbook dropped to the ground. I remember what I said that night, he asked. I remember the call, the blood, you staring at the wall. I said he touched my drawings. I nodded. But you thought I meant paper. I didn't speak. Couldn't. I drew to feel safe. That was the only place I had. And he took that too. He turned and pointed to Luis. He knew. He saw. But he didn't stop it. None of you did. Luis spoke then. Quiet, but steady. I was scared, Ricky. I thought they'd blame me. They always blamed me anyway. Ricky said. So what would it have changed? A lot, Luis whispered. Everything. Ricky stared at the ground, then back at me. I didn't kill Travis for revenge, he said. I killed him because I saw him walking toward another kid. My spine stiffened. That's why I came back. Not to punish, to stop it from happening again. I swallowed hard. You believe me? He asked. Yes. Too fast. Too easy. But it was true. He turned away from me, walked to Luis, cut the tape with a small knife. Luis rubbed his wrist but didn't run. Ricky stepped back, looked at both of us. Tell him I died out here, he said. Tell him I ran, or disappeared, or whatever helps you sleep. I shook my head. I can't do that. Then shoot me, he said, arms wide. I'm not here to be your judge. Then be my witness. We stood in silence. Then Ricky walked to the edge of the clearing, picked up the sketchbook, and tossed it toward me. It's all in there, he said. Everything, every night, every silence. I caught the book. My hands trembled. Luis stepped forward. Come with us, Ricky. We'll get you help. He laughed, soft and tired. There's no help for ghosts. He turned and walked into the trees. I didn't follow. Not right then. I called it in 30 minutes later. Told dispatch Luis was found. Safe. Told them the suspect fled into the woods. Told them I'd stay on site until the morning team arrived. Luis sat beside me. Neither of us said much. When the sun came up, the camp looked peaceful again. Birds chirped. A breeze moved across the lake, as if nothing had ever happened here. But I knew better. That afternoon, I opened the sketchbook. The last page was a drawing of Cabin 4, lights on. Curtains pulled. Inside, 3 boys. One hiding, one smiling, one staring out the window, waiting for someone to notice.